Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Guidance from Gratitude's podcast. I'm Robbie, and I have with me today Jenny Israel. I am so excited for those of you who haven't met Jenny to hear her and learn about the services she offers, but also about her path into stepping into service. So, I've known Jenny for probably 12, 13 years now, and we met originally through Chip Coffee at an event that I think it was the first event I produced with Chip. You were there, and we went to
Yep.
dinner afterwards. It's like she's cool. So we've stayed connected and worked together, and Jenny's been a practice. I've had taken all of Seraphim Blueprint from Jenny, and which we'll talk about a little bit. But I'm just happy that you could be here today. So thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me.
Yes, of course. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing now? What type of services you offer? And then we're going to get into how you got there.
It's interesting because at this point in my journey, it's almost difficult to label oneself once you get to a certain part of your enlightenment or transformation journey. But, for career and cultural purposes, we must label ourselves, don't we? So I officially give myself the title of a medical medium and spiritual and health coach. I am a level 3 practitioner for Discover Healing, which is the emotion code, the body code, and the belief code, all of which that family of modalities is essentially a family of divination founded healing modalities. And because of the fact that I started in divination, 13 years ago, using my pendulum and using the oracle cards and things like that, which are all methods of divination, this was a very natural fit for me. And also, after 13 years of getting certified in pretty much every healing modality out there, as far as energy healing was concerned, this one just hit me different. And the results that I was getting with the clients that I was working with in conjunction with the coaching were just extraordinary. And so I went all in with it, and it really works the way that my brain works. So it feels effortless, and the results that my clients get are worth every second. So that's where I'm at right now.
I love that you said the word effortless, because that is something that's a message that's coming through so frequently these days, is that things should be choiceless and effortless. And if you're having to push and try to make something happen and try to make it work and it's just not, then maybe that's not meant for you, or maybe it's not meant for right now. And so I love that you kind of already got there, and that you found this modality that you can work in that not only resonates with how you function as a human, but also helps others, which is what your ultimate goal is to be able to use your abilities to help others. So
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that you found this modality. So how did you get to be Jenny Israel, medical medium?
Well, it wasn't a smooth nor graceful process, I will say.
It rarely is it?
Like tumbling, ass over elbow into like whatever the universe throws at you next. But it really, the turning point for me was in 2009 when the economy really started to move, and there were lots of layoffs in various areas of the world. But I was in design and marketing for product development in the area of housewares. So on the supplier side for retail, basically. So, working with all of the major retail big boys in the market at the time, and attempting to try to customize in this new culture of private label, and everyone had to have something different. And so it really had become a very challenging, I mean, it was always a challenging industry to be in, but in that particular time period, it really was getting harder and harder. And so all of our departments were consolidated, and most of the department heads were laid off, and I was one of those.
Mm.
And I remember waking up the next morning, thinking, barely 30 years old and living in New York as a Maryland girl, transplanted here, and the hustle culture of New York, and making well over six figures, before the age of 30, and expecting to wake up that next morning terrified because of the fact that just the very nature of the New York corporate culture and retail and all of that. And instead, I woke up the next morning feeling like my soul had returned to me and feeling joy and feeling peace. And that was the only confirmation that I needed that there had to be something better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never in 1,000 years ever thought that I would be where I am now. This was not, I mean, you're
That's
talking
how it
to,
is, right?
I
We had this
am, I am
discussion.
the hyper vigilant overachiever perfectionist, like I'm the mover, I'm the shaker. I have to be everywhere, do everything, that kind of competitive nature. The energy or spiritual culture was never a thought in my mind.
Oh yeah.
And which is interesting because my background actually, all the ingredients were there for the
Mhm.
recipe to get fully baked. I just didn't know that it was going to be for me. I think my mom got attuned to Reiki when I was about 13. She became a Reiki master. She was working with, crystals. She was working with Donna Eden energy systems, which is very much in the, movement of frequency around us and sacred geometry and things like that. I grew up with the Time Life books on the coffee table about UFOs and paranormal. I grew up in a haunted house. I was seeing and speaking to spirits for the majority of my childhood. My father was a natural healer, a natural psychic. He became a pastor. So, he went hard, took a hard right turn and went that way. So all of the ingredients were there for sure, but I just never thought it would be for me. So when I got laid off, it wasn't like, oh, let me go be an energy healer. At the time, I actually was making my own jewelry. And I wanted at that moment of feeling a sense of renewed return to self, and the purpose in that was kind of like, I don't want to waste this moment. So what can I do with what I'm doing already that would feel good? And so the jewelry became kind of this, well, how can I bring purpose to that? And it gave birth to what I called the Bee's Knees Boutique. It emphasized women's empowerment, and I did that through designing jewelry that had crystal and gemstone components to it and understanding the personalities of those crystals. So I really started with crystals before anything else. And I simply wanted to be able to clear those crystals of any previous contact so they were clarified and fully empowered with the gifts that they already had within them. And so I asked my mother, you're a Reiki master. Can you attune my hands without me having to go through the whole rigmarole of everything that you did?
Yeah.
And she's like, I guess, like, sure, why not? So she turned my hands on. And I will never forget that feeling. It was like the inside of my body started to giggle. And this laughter came up out of the core of my being, and my entire body was laughing. My entire body was giggling. It was the most profound experience of my life. And I looked at my mother and I was like, what just happened? And she's basically was like, I think you just discovered what you're supposed to do next.
Yeah.
And it was within a few months, I was attuned to Reiki. I had signed up for a life coaching certification course. I rapidly went through my 3 levels of Reiki, and then it was about a year training to get through the life coaching. But in that time, that was the development, the search began at that point. And that was pretty much right when I met you. That was
Yeah.
my awakening point.
Yeah, that's great. And then I know that, I mean, I took all 6 levels of Seraphim Blueprint with you. So at some point you found that modality and began working with it. And then, you know, we were kind of joking earlier about how these things find us when
Absolutely.
when we are ready to receive them. And then once we feel like, oh, okay, I got this, and then it's like the next thing comes in. Like once we kind of integrate that modality or whatever, the next thing comes in. And I feel like that's where you are now with the three codes that you're
Yes.
working with, but you're also integrating all of the other things, all the other modalities that you use before in your practice as well. It's
100%. The word integration is key there
yeah,
because there isn't a single thing that I've done that I found. Everything that I have done found me. And most of it came through my mentors and spiritual teachers that I had at the time that, basically said, hey, I think you should look at this. I think you're going to be interested. Seraphim Blueprint was one of those things. And I was given the book by my mother, and I put it on the shelf, and I was like, I don't need another healing
yeah.
modality. And, it sat on the shelf for about a year and would speak to me every time I walked past the bookshelf. And I'm like, nah, I don't need another investment in another modality.
Yeah,
Not realizing that it was not an energy healing system. I mean, that's what we call it because that's how culturally people understand it.
yes,
And we draw people in through the enticement of another diploma on their wall, that certification process. But it truly was like my own personal Jacob's ladder,
yeah,
to like the secrets of the building blocks of the universe.
yeah. It's a pretty cool modality. um and one thing that kind of I pulled from when you were talking about your mother and she attuning you to Reiki, your hands to Reiki, and because your initial goal was to activate crystals, and that's one of the first things you do in Seraphim Blueprint. So you were
Yeah.
already like seeking that you just didn't know what it was. And that's what I love about, you know, being led and curiosity of people that are on their spiritual journey. I used to say that's such an important part of it is if you go in a bookstore and something like you see a book and there's something about it, you like pick it up and buy it. Get it from the
Mhm.
library if you can't afford to buy it. Find a way. If something sparks your curiosity, follow that path because there's some reason why it tapped into you that at that moment. You must need some information from it, or it's going to lead you somewhere. You also mentioned Eden Energy Medicine, and this is how our conversations always go with Jenny. It's like she says something, and I'm like, yeah, that's. I'm about to launch into doing the first year Eden Energy Medicine program, and I made it happen. I mean, I can't go away for 4 weekends a year to do this. So I found a woman that I resonated with and went to her website, saw she lived in the city. I was like, would you? And then I saw she had a house up here. I was like,
Wow.
would you ever teach up here? And she said, she wrote me back the next day and said, I put on my altar yesterday. I wanted to find a way to teach up in Woodstock yesterday. And here you are. So, yes, let's do it. And I said, well, I have a retreat coming up. Do you want to come and speak at my retreat if you're going to be here that weekend? I said, come and talk for half an hour. We could like maybe go to this beautiful sculpture garden and do some energy, techniques and give people some tips. And she's like, absolutely. So she came and spoke. 4 people from the retreat signed up for her workshop, for her year-long workshop. So she had her class and it
Incredible.
all just happened. So then I started going like, why am I doing this? Why am I taking this level 1 year-long training? It's not something I want to offer clients. It's just for my Virgo mind to understand better, and you understand that very
Well,
well.
yeah, I mean, you're already, understanding the Eden kind of format and how to work
Yes.
with energy. You already do it.
But I want to
You know,
dive in and get
it
all the nitty-gritty.
understanding where the structure came from,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
yes, and I understand that that's pretty much one of the guiding factors of all of the things that I am and still constantly learning because I'm such a giant nerd and I
Yeah.
seek to understand,
Yeah.
as much as we can humanly conceptualize anyway.
Yeah. But what was interesting is I didn't know why. I was like questioning, why am I spending all this money? Why am I doing this? And then last week I started volunteering at a horse rescue farm and it all became clear. And then I'm a member of Eden Living, her monthly membership, and this month is about animal healing.
Of
And I'm
course
like,
it is.
there we go. So everything just lined up, and the answers, to my question of why am I doing this? Why am I investing all this money? Why do I have to buy a massage table? Like.
But didn't you share with me, Robbie, that you had said, why am I doing the horse thing? Because it's for me and no other
Yes,
reason. I'm
yes,
doing this
that,
for me and for
yes,
nothing else. So
yes,
there's your answer. Why am
yeah,
I doing all of this?
yeah,
For me.
yeah. But now I know I can apply it to the animals, and it's just
Yes,
that
of course.
reminder, it's just, but yes, I finally made the choice to do something for me, and then it just blossoms outward into, sharing. So that's a lovely thing. But yeah, so I don't know, it's just funny how these things happen and we're just led, but it's all through curiosity and synchronicities and seeing them fall into place. But you have to be present to do that.
Certainly, you have to be open to actually be able to see it 100%. And
Yeah.
I mean that's such a key part of the unveiling, right? The different levels of revelation, the different levels of acquiring and then integrating wisdom. I was told once, it kind of stuck with me forever, that there's a significant difference between knowledge and wisdom. You
Mm,
can know something, right? And you can come across that knowledge, acquire knowledge, and that knowledge could hit you over and over and over and over again, right?
mhm.
And you could be in conversation with someone and say, "Yeah, I know," but you can know something and do nothing with it.
Yeah.
And until you have used the knowledge in an application and fully integrated it into your being, it does not become wisdom until that point. And so the ability to be open to not only receive it, but see it and use it
Mhm.
that's a journey into itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's such a wonderful point. And we put up so much resistance and a lot of that's allowing ourselves to feel it and
Mm.
really internalize the lesson. Why is this coming up again and again for me? There's something here for me, but most of us either don't recognize that aspect of it or don't want to. And so that's why it keeps coming up. Just like you walking past that book. It's like, I'm here. I'm ready. I want to
Well,
be a part of your life.
that's the hardest part of I don't know if people realize the level of resistance that they're signing up for when they decide, I want to have a spiritual journey, right? Like
Yes.
I want to awaken myself. And the ego puts on its boxing gloves and is like, the hell you are. I'm going to meet you at every corner and knock you out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the resistance is entirely existing inside the ego because we have to deconstruct this entire filter and understand, or what we think we know about the world, what we think we understand, and somehow allow space to be open to a new belief or a new perspective, something that completely can blow to smithereens your
Mhm.
current belief system, right? And that is the path of resistance that we will repetitively meet in our life, regardless of how long you've been on your spiritual journey or
Mhm.
in this industry or whatever your experiences are. That contrast is what allows our human self to grow, right? Like I was just listening to a guy who actually he's an expertise in fascia healing, but really really intelligent guy. The account is called Human Garage, if anybody's interested in following him. But he was talking about just the nature of our biology, or physiology, and not just on a physical nature, but on the quantum level as well, that our existence is meant to constantly be met with contrast and chaos, to be challenged with change in order to grow
Mhm.
and have breakthroughs. Because if we are constantly doing the same thing all the time, no growth occurs
Mhm.
whatsoever, right? And so it's just like a plant. A plant is constantly growing. The minute it stops growing is when it begins to atrophy and die.
Mhm.
And so, this idea of constantly meeting the challenge is a callus that has to get developed if this is a choice that you're making to walk on this path, because you will enter into the first level of going into a spiritual awakening unless you really have had some sort of magnificent magical intervention by spirit, like a near-death experience or something like that. You are going to rub hard on that ego from day one,
Mhm.
because your mind is very structured to be of the world.
Mhm.
And when you start moving out of that into this other realm, all of those structures have to fall apart. I mean, the first time that I put my spiritual business together, it was so retail marketing, it was ridiculous. Like, it was such in a box. It was spirit in a box, basically. And I just couldn't understand why it wasn't working for me. I was like, why is nobody, and I realized over time, I've realized that one of the things that I hated about corporate retail was that my self-worth was constantly being put under the microscope according to public opinion,
Mhm.
right? It was,
Mhm.
what were you forecasting? First of all, you had to tell the future, because you had to figure out next year at this time, what do people want and what are they going to be buying, right?
Mhm.
Right down to the colors that they're going to love. And so we have the future prediction, right? So we've got forecasting going on. What's the energy of the market going to be next year?
Mhm.
What did I do when I moved into my career? I was doing energy forecasting for people in their lives. What is spirit bringing over the
Mhm.
next year?
Mhm.
So what's the difference between those two things? Nothing. And then the fact that I was being judged by these authorities, right, that were out
Mhm.
in the market, and public opinion, like, what's your profit and loss look like? What are the retail sales look like? It's like, if nobody's touching your stuff, they don't like it. And what is social media? Same
Mhm.
freaking thing. Like, we put our gifts out there, we put ourselves out there in this vulnerable way, and then we're constantly staring at how many views we get, how many likes we get, how
Yep.
many followers, and we're like, oh well, I must not be that good, right? My gifts must not be real, because nobody wants to hear me or nobody
Yep.
wants to watch me. And so those are things that I have been continuously working on for the last 14 years of,
Yes.
being on this path of understanding the very reasons why I was happy to get out of corporate retail. I just brought right with me into my
Brought it with you.
spiritual business.
Yeah. Well, I think that that is a real challenge for people that are stepping in and starting to, to have a practice, or, offer services to people, comparing themselves to other people.
Mm,
And the most powerful thing I can say is that people come to you because you're you. They
mhm.
resonate with you for some reason, and you don't need to question what that is.
And
And
that takes
just
practice, though, to not
yeah.
question
Oh
that.
boy, you kidding me? I mean, even now, I'm like, why am I gonna have that workshop or have that conversation? So and so already did it. And they did it so much better than I ever could.
Yep.
And the hit I get back is because people want to hear it from you.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And I can't refute that because people show up.
Right.
And it might be 3 people, it might be 5 people, but that's great. I have 5 people that I can talk to and share some information with, and hopefully they can take it away. But that is a struggle for us to have to, compare ourselves to the Kyle Grays or Radley Valentines of the world out there talking about angels. So then in my head, why would anybody want to learn about the angels from me? And
Right. I mean, here
because
I
they,
am coming on your podcast, standing on the shoulders of Chip before me and Radley before me. And then, I'm having this conversation with myself in the mirror this morning as I'm putting on my makeup, and I'm thinking, how do I fit in here? Like, who's going to come and listen to this podcast where I'm speaking to Robbie after Chip's been on and Radley's been on? But this was a message for me from the very beginning. The event where we met, I raised my hand when Chip was on stage. This has happened every single time that Chip has ever done a reading for me. Okay. I listen to the readings that everyone else gets from him, and they're super specific, right?
yeah.
Like, right down to the details of these people that have passed away and, like, all of these things. And then comes Jenny. Right? What do I get? I get the grand booming voice of God that is so obscure and answers no questions that I have whatsoever. That one time he said to me, is I was asking him I have no patience. I'm a double Aries. So patience is definitely a virtue that I will be developing for the rest of my life. But my idea of developing my gifts, right? Which I've come to not really like that word either.
Mhm.
Um, Developing those spiritual quote unquote gifts, right? Because at that point, any retreat that you would go to, any level of spiritual counseling, any teacher, these people that you listen to on social media, they really nail that, don't they? It's like they pin you to the wall and they're like, identify your gifts. What
Mhm.
are they? Name them. Right. And so in the beginning, that was who am I in this? Like,
Mhm.
what do I do? It wasn't about being, like just being me,
Yeah.
understanding who I am and that I am the gift. So all the parts and pieces are all gifts,
Yeah.
right? It's just trying to figure out, like you said, what brings you joy. And
Mhm.
that's where you go. Like that's what you follow. And society makes us put a name on that and say, well,
Yes.
this is who you are, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what you do. And so at that point in my development, I asked Chip, what do I do next? And his response to me, I have never forgotten, and I've used it over and over in the last 13 years. Jenny, you already have everything you need to have everything you want.
Mhm.
And he said it out loud, and he just kind of looked around like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
Like, what just came out of my mouth? Someone write that down. But
I can see it doing
all
that.
of my readings have been that way.
Yeah.
I've never been in a situation where I've gotten to go to a psychic and they were like, here's a roadmap to
Oh,
where you're going and how you're
wow.
going to do it and what this is going to look like. And so I think that over the course of the years, as I was developing and trying to figure out who I was inside of this journey and what I loved and what it was going to look like for me, it was uh this profound idea that nothing that I could acquire or nothing that was happening outside of me was going to determine who I was going to become or where I was going to go, that it was inside of me the whole time, that I already had everything I needed. And this was before my certifications, before I got completely, certified in Reiki. I was still working on my life coaching certification. I was very fortunate to have lots of really incredible mentors and people that I was working with at the time to try to keep me centered. But in that immaturity of knowing myself on this spiritual journey, I was still attempting to try to define myself based on what everyone else was doing and what
Yeah.
it looked like out in the world. Like, are you a medium that talks to dead people? Are you an
Yeah.
angel psychic? Do you read oracle cards? Do you
Yeah.
remote view? Like, what is it that you do? It
Mhm.
wasn't about who are you.
It's so funny because I literally a week or two ago, and I haven't even put this out there. I just did it. I changed my sessions from 30-minute angel sessions to 30-minute sessions and 60-minute sessions or whatever, because in that session, I could have messages from spirit. I could have do cards. I could do energy. Whatever I'm supposed to do with you in that 30 minutes is what we can do, you know, because I just felt like it's all morphed together. It's
Mm-hmm.
all one thing, and it's what I'm supposed to be helping someone with. It doesn't matter. And something else, a really wonderful point that you brought up was what other people do is going to be totally different than what I do, and the label you put on it is different. So Chip for years has been telling me that I'm going to step into mediumship. He constantly tells me that. And for so long, it was really kind of frustrating because it wasn't happening and it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
happening and it wasn't happening.
It wasn't happening in what way, though?
Exactly. And finally, one day I was like, Robbie, you do mediumship all the time. You just don't talk to dead people and share those messages with their loved ones. You're doing mediumship by sharing more universal messages and helping people along their path to move past the barriers and blockades that they create to help them see things differently to move forward. Like
Can we
that's how
just
I'm.
like tell everyone right now, like whatever you think it means to be a medium, just erase that out of your brain. What does the
Yes.
word medium mean? It means in the middle. The
Yeah.
definition of medium is middle-sized, right? The middle man. All right. So
Yeah.
you, in any place, time, phase, age, you are a medium for something. You are a go-between, you are a channel, you are in the middle of one message getting delivered to another place, right? You are the carrier of something. So every single person listening to this podcast right now is a medium. So don't be shocked if you go to a psychic and they're like, "Did you know that you're a medium?" Well, yeah, God made us all that way. The same way that we're all healers. Like, this is why I have trouble with these labels at this point, because in my surrender to God of all of this, the resistance, because all the heartache, all the pain, all the suffering that I've encountered on this trip since I started, all had to do with expectations not being met,
Mhm.
these perceived outcomes of a finish line, right? That
Mhm.
suddenly I would be done and
Mhm.
be fully cooked and like fully formed. The idea of being healed. What does that look like? What are the
Mhm.
expectations of that? Right? It's all the resistance to these beliefs that we have, these ideas that things have to look exactly a specific way. And
Mhm.
this is where, with those that I have mentored over the years in developing their ability to commune with God and have that inside voice get louder so they
Mhm.
can really start to hear it. It was, well, I want to be a medium. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, I want to be able to talk to dead people. I want to be able to hear the angels, like physically, like they're talking into
Mm.
your ear. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but that's not how it always works. Like, there are
No.
people that do get audible things, that is a real thing. But for most, the mediumship is the message within you. So you hear your own voice.
Mhm.
It might come in a surprising way that might not be your own language, but it's always from you. And
Mhm.
it's mostly your own voice telling you an idea, giving you an idea, or having
Mhm.
a breakthrough. That it's just understanding that you know we we are creatures of control. And why do we want to control everything? Because at the end of the day, Robbie, we all want credit for it, right? Like, we want to be glorified. And so one of the most important parts of my spiritual journey was coming down off that pedestal,
Yeah.
and not really, I never really wanted to be there, but there
Yeah.
was a part of my ego that wanted the adoration. I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be the oracle. And that was a hard moment to admit to myself that ego had driven the whole first part of my journey was driven by ego, and a very, if we want to be real about the spiritual community over the course of the last 20 years, has become very narcissistic. It's
Mm.
become very, very egocentric. It's all about you and your gifts, right? And how you control the universe. It's all about you manifesting, like God, we using God as our own personal vending machine,
Yeah.
for the things that we want out of life, and really having to let that tower fall.
Yeah.
It was devastating.
Well,
Devastating.
my thoughts about manifesting. I mean, I feel like that happens naturally as you go through your your day-to-day life living presently, because you see the things that are coming, the magic and the beauty around you, and you're connecting with that, which is only leading you, to down that path of happiness to what is, meant for you, what's your higher purpose. And as you're that's what manifestation is for me. I mean, sure,
Mm-hmm.
it's great to have these other, like these material things that we want to, to live a little, you know fun life and stuff, but those things, I feel, happen organically as you step into your happiness.
I agree. I think there's two levels of manifestation, and they're very much based on our quantum mechanics. God designed a universe that actually has law that we are guaranteed to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
it's not if it's happening, it's always happening. We're manifesting every second of every day. And the minute we send out an electrical impulse from our brain, our heart creates a magnetism to pull it in. This is quantum mechanics, it's science. And so it's not an if I'm manifesting, you are, but where are you manifesting from? Are you manifesting from the mind and through ego and control and expectation and outcome,
In the sense of
thinking
lacking.
exactly from that place of I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not happy because I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can manifest all the money in the world, but through that method, you're going to be void
Yeah.
anyway. You're not going to be happy. So are you manifesting through the heart, which is about being present? You know, it's this is why I gave up the predictive side
Mm-hmm.
of my work. I did predictive work for many, many years. And what I found with the combination of that predictive work and the energy healing that I was doing, the clientele that I was attracting in desired to have a spiritual connection, but they didn't really want to do the work
Yeah.
because I was doing it for them.
Mm.
So that really started to wear on me to the point where I became very ill.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why I moved away from I stopped doing everything. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was a
I
point
remember.
where I just completely collapsed. And, I'll be real honest, the state of the world at that time, it was right after the insurrection. Um, and I realized how split my world was
Mm-hmm.
and very political, so political. And I thought, when did the spiritual endeavor become so politically driven?
Mm-hmm.
And my whole world started to fall apart because I saw the fear driving spiritual truth.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly the spiritual truth was fear based.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the truthers out there, like and putting on that white hat and saying, I'm a truther. I'm like, okay, but if you're still towing the line based on fear, then
Mm-hmm.
you aren't a
Yeah.
truther.
Yeah.
That's
If you're instilling
and
fear in other people, that's not
exactly.
that's not through love. That's
And
that's
I mean,
ego.
it's
That's
it's the with great power comes great responsibility,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so that time in my life, I woke up over the course of a few days and was, I had to go to my husband and call in my prayer circle because I didn't want to be here anymore. I
Mhm.
just wanted to end it. It's kind of one of those things of everything that I believe to be good and beautiful and true and my path and my purpose suddenly all seemed like a lie.
Mm.
And that was a real moment for me, where I just disassembled everything.
Mm.
And I borderline quit. It was almost one of those moments where I'm like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Maybe I can go back to retail. And, it was one of those times where, the spirit intervention was super heavy on me.
Mhm.
And understanding that, God had always been there. I just was looking in the wrong places
Mhm.
and really started to transform the way that I expressed my own connection with God and what that surrender looked like and who I was in that instead of who I was in the world through my image, through my title, through the classes I taught, through the work that I did. And my business went to zero.
Yeah.
It was like all of my greatest fears came to life as far as that was concerned. But under all of that rubble and in that fire, I found myself
Yeah.
and I found that version of me that God had designed from the beginning
Mhm.
and started to rebuild from there. And that was a good 3-year process.
Yeah. And that's the thing that people need to realize. If things are like, again, meeting that resistance, having those constant challenges where it just breaks you down and you have no hope. It's like, having to move through that is not fun or easy, but call in the support that you need, not only from your spirit partners, but from the humans around you
Mm-hmm.
too. No, and that's one of the reasons why I created my community, is so people have a place to go to not only learn the tools, but for the support, because there's not a lot of communities out there like that
No.
have that. And I feel so blessed that these people have found the community, and seeing the conversations going on and seeing the friendships developed offline. Even it's been amazing. But I see that happening, and then as they realize that they can continue to just take that next step forward,
Mm-hmm.
instead of sitting in that stagnant place and having it fester. Like that's you were like, I had to call my team in. I had to take that step and know that I was going to be guided where I was supposed to be next. Having that faith that this is happening for me instead of to me,
To
and
me.
changing that mentality is such a powerful thing to do, because then you feel like you can do something about it instead of just feeling powerless.
Even if it means doing nothing.
Yeah.
I think that was my greatest lesson in all of this, is that sometimes there's nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to just be still.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
that's you always have to be in that place of stillness,
well,
and
I mean,
like
that's one
that's
of
the
my
thing.
favorite scriptural lines is, be still and know that I am God.
Mm.
And that's inside, right? Like that's not the booming voice that comes from the heavens. It's when you sit and be still for any length of time, the voice speaks from within you, and that's the whole point. And there is angst in those moments that we are so uncomfortable
Yeah.
inside of, that we just think, well, if I could just move, if I could just do this, maybe I go backwards, go back to the things that worked before. That's what a lot of us do, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I
Yeah.
just want to go back to what I knew before.
Yeah.
Can I just go back? No, you can't.
No. No,
Because once
because
you've advanced and grown in that consciousness, there is no going back. And what worked for you then is not going to work for you now. The knowing what to do, sometimes knowing that there's nothing to do.
yeah, I
And
talk a
that's
lot
not
about
easy.
definitely not easy. And that shifting perspective, as you take a step forward and you kind of learn that from that new place, and you have that view from that new little bit of a higher perspective, then you can't go back and do things the same way. Because you're looking at things entirely differently. You're having entirely different things around you, and encountering different lessons and blessings. And so I just see it as a step. You took a step up, and it's not we're not supposed to go back. We're supposed to keep going
Exactly.
forward. So, Emmanuel talks about saying yes and taking that next step forward is such a powerful thing. Even if you don't know where it's leading you, even if you don't know what it is, just being open and surrendering. You've mentioned surrender so many times during our conversation, and just surrendering and being, imagining the Fool card of the tarot or the Dream
Yes.
card, and just taking that step and knowing the universe is going to support you.
Well, there's so many. I mean, you think about, from the scriptural standpoint, it's the lantern to your feet, right? And, I always, in the beginning, when I really, really was more about the angels and communicating with our kind of earthly helpers, that were able to kind of help translate what God was trying to show you or tell you, and in a way that we can understand with our human minds. The angels are such amazing guides for this human existence. And Metatron and Sandalphon were kind of my go-tos. And, Sandalphon was the angel that would give you your new shoes, for your new path. And
Mm.
such a great personality, the kind of guy you just want to go have a beer with, right? That kind of energy. And so it started there, that just look at the step that's in front of you. And then, as I started to get more into the word of God and how that shows up in the holy books, and also how it's still coming through each of us today and being said, the lantern unto your feet, right? You only need to be able to see what's right in front of you. And then is it the Martin Luther King quote? Faith is being able to take a step without being able to see the whole staircase. It's like how many times it's been said over and over, yet we still seek to know what's at the top of the staircase because our egos are too afraid to have faith that when we jump, we will get caught.
Definitely powerful thought. I never wanted to do this. I wanted to produce events for other people. I never wanted to step out and do this part of it. But after that mastermind with Radley, I kind of knew I had to. I knew why the other thing wasn't working out. And, I never, growing up Southern Baptist and, kind of totally rejecting organized religion and,
Yep.
being told what I should believe, I was like, that's not what I want to do. I don't want, but it comes from a very different place when we're talking to people and sharing our stories. And I know now that the experiences I've had, good and bad through life happened. And because I'm able to now help people in that way, and so it's easier coming from that place than the place of, oh my God, I have to go and talk about angels. And why do people want to hear about angels from me? Or, or I'm going to, whatever it is, and because it's my experience. And I feel it's very similar to you. Like you have that same kind of philosophy. It's like, I've gone through all of these things that's given me a grander perspective of life and this human experience. And you have such deep knowledge in so many areas. And that's why I love taking the classes with you, the Seraphim Blueprint classes, because it wasn't just about Seraphim Blueprint, but it was this base that you provided that went so much deeper and into so many different areas. So it was such a valuable, experience to learn from you in that. But again, you're just here to help other people through their path.
Exactly. And this is what it means to be a medium.
Yeah.
You're a guide, right? You aren't supposed to heal them. You aren't supposed to tell them where to go. You aren't supposed to tell them what to do. The will of God is that we use our free will and we do it in a way of inherent goodness and love. That's the will of God. So, at any point in time, you're not being forced to do anything. You always have a choice. You might not like the choices in front of you, but you still get to choose, right?
Yes.
And not choosing is also a choice.
Yes.
So, this idea of putting yourself under so much pressure goes back to what I said before. You're not controlling a person's journey.
Yeah.
You are simply opening a door for them and giving them a peek of what could be on the other side, but they're required to take the steps on their own, and you just create a space of love and support and empathy and understanding. And this is why each of us is so important in our own journey, because we each have a unique testimony, which means that the people that come to us we're going to be able to reach down through the fire and pull them up because we already were in there.
Yeah.
We were in that specific fire.
Yep.
And so your testimony becomes your most powerful offering to another person. And that requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us to be authentic. It requires us to not have all the answers and be okay with that. It really is a space that anyone could stand in if you have the courage to be completely humble and in fact admit that you know nothing, right? And that the mediumship that we are given naturally, that connection to God, to hear the voice within, is going to provide you with all the knowledge that you need. Just like Chip said, you already have everything that you need to have everything that you want.
Yeah.
You just need to surrender to
Mm.
that.
Oh, that word, surrender.
I mean, it's like that's a daily, like
Yes.
daily. I'd like put on my armor of God to walk into surrender every single day. And, I mean, I think that this was, like I said, in the beginning, I started speaking to a lot of angels first. That was like my gateway into the spiritual realm, and
I
then
call the
started
angels the gateway drug
oh,
for
the gateway
spirituality.
drug. And then it was, and this was in the time of Doreen Virtue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Before Radley took the seat. But, it was I mean, just the abundance of frequencies and energies that you could communicate with and connect to. The fairies were from the time I was a little girl. I should probably say that's where I really started before I started, right? It was the realm of the elementals. And the crystals go into the elemental realm as well. And then the angelic realm, and then the galactic realm, and then the ascended master realm, and all of these things. And it was all great and fun. And, and Matt, wow, what incredible conversations that you get to have with these energies. But I think that it's like buying a ticket to a Broadway show and sitting down in a seat where you are only allowed to watch one character.
Mm.
That's it. You don't get to hear the other voices. You don't get to hear the other lines. You don't get to hear the whole song, right? You don't get to see the whole chorus line. You don't get the impact. The impact comes from the collective experience of all the voices mixed together, of all the bodies moving together, of watching the set change. Like that's where the real experience comes from. And so when we limit ourselves and compartmentalize the voice of God, then we don't get the same impact. As I started to just listen to one collective voice, to your point of like, no, you're not coming for 30 minutes to talk to your angels. You're coming for 30 minutes to connect with spirit,
Mhm.
like that voice inside of you. But sometimes, God will bring in project managers to help you understand a concept a little better. And I think that's where these other realms can be helpful.
Well, I also think that, and we've had this conversation before, because like even in when we were doing Seraphim Blueprint, I asked you at the very beginning, I was like, why aren't we just going right to God? And you're like,
Right.
because people aren't ready to. Like probably that's level 6. Chill out. You don't get
Yeah.
there. But we have the separation where we don't feel like we're worthy. We have all of these
Yes.
things in our head where we have to go to an archangel because that, they're and we still, even some of us feel like we can't ask them for help, or an angel or whatever, because they're too busy and they have other things that are more important. But as we know, they have infinite capacity to help everyone at the same time, and they are just these loving beings that want to see you happy and see you living in your joy, and they want to help us. So ask. But I think that our minds, the way our human mind is structured, is that it helps us to have Archangel Ariel's here for strength and courage, Archangel Michael's for safety and protection and life purpose. And so we can go to that little box and, compartmentalize and work with that archangel on that purpose that we're
Right.
struggling with right now.
It's
But
like the
if
friend
that
that
works, that's great. That's great. But ultimately, you want to get to where you can just go to God.
Yes.
So you don't
And
have to
and
have
God
those
will,
intermediaries, that that you are worthy of that direct connection to God that you might have been told by someone, in your church or minister or whatever, priest, that you're not. But you have to go through me. You have to listen to what my words are about God. No, have your own relationship with God.
exactly. And then
And
the project managers are given to you. Like I said,
yeah,
it's like that moment where you have something that you really need to talk about, and you've got that one, that it's just that one friend that
yeah,
really understands you, and like it's like I got to talk to so and so about this because they're the only ones that are really going to get me right now. It's the same way. Like you're
yeah.
going to be sent the support that you need in that exact moment, which is why the support is always there. Then the information that you need is always present.
Yep.
And that moment that you say to yourself, well, I don't know what to do. I just wish I knew what to do. If you just stopped and allowed yourself to be still for a moment
Yep.
and look at what was the last directive that you were given, right? Like, what was the last thing that you said? I know I have to do this.
Mhm.
That's still where you are. If you haven't been given a new assignment, then that means it's not time to do anything. And now you just need to sit and have a conversation,
Yeah.
right? And work through whatever it is that's going on
Step
right
out of the fear and worry and doubt that you'll know what it is and just sit.
now. Mm-hmm. Mm.
So it's not easy to do, but it's so valuable. And that's the only way, is being in the present moment is the only way that you can continue to move forward, because that way you're not so far out in the future worrying about whatever's out there, or so far in the fear and doubt of the past, the dragging that baggage along with you. So, well, Jenny, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this. Could you just tell people how to find you and like the services you're offering, and just give us, a little bit of information about that so they can find you?
Of course. You can find me on the various social media platforms as Jenny Israel CPC, Certified Professional Coach. I pretty much use that handle across the board. I also am, I have my own website, jennyisrael.com, that outlines all of my services there. So you have the opportunity to pick and choose whether you just want to experience a 30-minute body code session, which is very precise and almost surgical in nature. It pretty much goes right after the physical body. Most people that come to me for a body code session have something physical going on, and they want to find out what imbalance is preventing them from moving forward in their healing process. So we actually use the system to decode what's going on in the body, and we put it back together. It's like, fixing that circuitry that got blown at whatever point. So you can just do a half-hour session. The 1 hour sessions are kind of what we were talking about. It's the full hour of coaching, the coaching experience, which allows the client to express what's going on. We can have a pretty back and forth dialogue. And then there's time in that hour to do whatever it is that's required. So we have time to do a belief code session. We have time to do body code. We have time, whatever is needed in that moment. And then there is, an individual belief code session as well, if that's just something that you're interested in experiencing. And then I have packages for those people who are looking for the long-term, expansion, and really digging into peeling those layers of the onion back, because this work, like any other work, is cumulative. So you can have one session, certainly, and experience some relief from that session, but there's always another layer of the onion that will come forward to be looked at. So if you would like a more long-term, there's packages of 3, 6, 12 for more long-term coaching. And I do offer, on my social media, I try to be as active as I can, but as I mentioned, it's not my favorite place to be. So I do it based on, if I'm told that morning, hey, you need to go on and talk about this, then I will. So I am on there. I also partner with 2 other integrative businesses, New Beginnings Wellness Center in Smithtown, New York on Long Island. Dr. Carrie Chipino, who's a energetic chiropractor, and she specializes in neurology, brain core, neurofeedback. And then I'm also a part of the Meraki Integrative team, which does more functional medicine, and I'm the more emotional, spiritual component of those packages. So you can also experience my work through those places, or you can just reach out to me directly to work with me.
Great. Well, I'll make sure that I put your contact information and social stuff in the text so people can find you. But thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me. I've learned so much from you over the years, and I know that your journey will resonate with people who are going through their journey, and
Mm.
being able to see that, you just keep going, you come out the other end. Even those crises of faith and those challenges, if yeah, we've all lived them. And a lot
Yes.
of people don't talk about them openly, but we've all lived them. And so thank you for coming on and sharing that. I know that it will resonate and help people that are going through their own personal journey or trying to step into service. And So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you, and I always love having conversations with you. It's just everyone gets to be a fly on the wall today.
I know. I don't know how many times we've talked. I was like, we should have recorded this. We should have recorded this. But we recorded it finally. Yay. So thank you again for coming on today, Jenny. And I wish you all the best with the new offerings, new services that you're offering. I can't wait to experience them myself.
Thanks, Robbie, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast episode today with Jenny Israel. We hope that you found some really beautiful nuggets in there that you can take into your journey and inspire you to step into your own service, whatever that means to you. If you are interested in scheduling a session or attending a workshop that we have going on, you can learn more at my website, robbiekearns.com. Look in the comments and I will post all of Jenny Israel's contact information as well. I recently did a belief code session with her and it was really amazing. She is running a summer special right now, so you can learn more about that on her website as well. So thank you so much. Hope you all have a wonderful day.